She doesn't speak much. That's why I like her, Damien Sterling says, the words clipping the sterile air of his home office. He doesn't look at Annalise, who stands a respectful 10 feet from his marble desk, hands loosely clasped behind her back. He directs his gaze to a sleek tablet held by a nervous, pencil-thin assistant. Efficiency over personality, that's the brief. Annalise keeps her expression placid, a calm lake reflecting a turbulent sky. She has learned that stillness is a form of armor in houses like this, where the staff are meant to be as silent and unobtrusive as the climate control system. She is a function, not a person. Her resume, which included 2 decades of experience in homes of quiet wealth, had been reduced to a single, palatable sentence. She doesn't speak much. Mr. Sterling finally swivels his chair, his eyes, the color of polished granite, flicking over her simple black uniform. It is a gaze of assessment, not of connection. He is calculating her value, her potential for causing friction, her capacity for invisibility. "You're not here to connect, analyze," he states, the name sounding foreign and clinical on his tongue. "You're here to clean. The house has systems. Schedules are on the kitchen interface. Adhere to them. My son, Leo, is not to be disturbed. His tutors and therapists have his needs covered. Your role does not intersect with his. Is that clear?" "Yes, Mr. Sterling," she says, her voice low and even, betraying none of the cold sting his words leave behind. It's a familiar chill, the kind that seeps into your bones when you are reminded that your humanity is conditional, permitted only when it doesn't inconvenience those who pay for your time. He dismisses her with a curt nod, turning back to his world of numbers and silent transactions. The assistant scurries Annalise out of the office, the heavy door closing with a soft, definitive whoosh, sealing her out of his world and into hers, the vast, echoing hallways of a home that felt more like a museum of a family than a place where one actually lived. The Sterling mansion is a masterpiece of modern architecture and emotional vacancy. Floor-to-ceiling windows display a manicured garden, but they feel like screens, projecting a nature that is not to be touched. White walls are punctuated by enormous, abstract paintings that scream with color but offer no warmth. The silence is the loudest thing in the house, broken only by the distant hum of technology. Annalise begins her duties, her movements economical and precise. She cleans surfaces that are already spotless, erases fingerprints that don't exist. She is a ghost polishing a mausoleum. As she works, she catches glimpses of him, the boy she is not to disturb. Leo is a small figure in the vast landscape of the house. He moves through the cavernous rooms like a satellite in a lonely orbit, never making a sound. His hair is the same dark shade as his father's, but his eyes, when she manages to see them, are wide and lost. He spends hours sitting by the largest window in the living room, a great glass wall that overlooks a gray, uninviting sea. She finds him there late in her first afternoon. The sky is beginning to bruise with the evening chill, and the light is fading. Leo sits on the floor, his small back straight, tracing invisible patterns with one finger against the cold glass. He's trying to draw on the barrier between inside and out, a silent conversation with a world he cannot reach. He doesn't seem to be waiting for anyone. Her instructions are clear. Your role does not intersect with his. Annalise knows she should walk away, continue her silent polishing, and respect the boundary. But the sight of his profound loneliness stirs something in her, a quiet rebellion of the soul. What is the point of a clean house if the people inside it are broken? She turns and walks to the kitchen, a gleaming expanse of stainless steel and black granite. It is a chef's dream, yet it smells of nothing but disinfectant. It has the cold, unused feeling of a showroom. Annalise opens a refrigerator that could hold a month's worth of food but contains only bottled water, protein bars, and perfectly arranged, joyless vegetables. In a cavernous pantry behind a row of organic grains, she finds what she is looking for, a canister of dark, rich cocoa powder. Her movements become different now, softer. She finds a small saucepan and a carton of whole milk. The clink of the pan on the induction stove is a small, defiant sound. She warms the milk slowly, whisking in the cocoa and a spoonful of sugar, not from a recipe but from memory. The sterile air of the kitchen begins to fill with a scent that does not belong here, the warm, sweet, comforting aroma of chocolate. It is the smell of childhood, of comfort, of a kindness that asks for nothing in return. She pours the steaming liquid into a small, plain white mug. It's heavy and solid, a grounding object in this house of fragile aesthetics. She carries it back to the living room. Leo hasn't moved. He is still tracing his silent stories onto the glass. Annalise approaches him as one might a deer in the forest, slowly, without sudden movements. She kneels not too close and places the warm cup of cocoa on the floor beside him. The offering is a silent one. She doesn't say, "I made this for you," or "Here, drink this." The gesture is the message. He doesn't look at her. His eyes remain fixed on the window, but she sees the change. His small finger hovering over the glass stills. His focus has shifted. He is aware of the mug, of the plume of steam rising from it, carrying the scent of chocolate. He is aware of her presence, not as a functionary or a uniform, but as the source of this unexpected warmth. Annalise rises slowly and retreats, melting back into the shadows of the grand, empty house. She watches from the far side of the room. After a full minute of stillness, Leo's small hand reaches out, not for the mug but toward it, his fingers hovering over the ceramic, feeling its radiant heat. It is not an acceptance, not yet, but it is a beginning, and in a house this cold, a single degree of warmth is a revolution. Annalise learns the geography of the Sterling mansion not by its layout, but by its emotional temperature. The east wing, where Mr. Sterling conducts his business, is Arctic. The south wing, with its guest suites and entertainment rooms, is a sterile cool. Only Leo's rooms on the upper floor hold any potential for warmth, a potential that is actively, systematically suppressed. She moves through these zones of silence, her presence a soft rhythm of cloth against glass, brush against stone. She is seen but not seen. The head housekeeper, a woman named Mrs. Gable with a spine as rigid as her tightly wound bun, reinforces the house's primary directive during Annalise's first weekly review. "Mr. Sterling values discretion above all," Mrs. Gable states, her eyes scanning Annalise's perfectly clean uniform for any imagined flaw. "Your work is excellent, but remember your function. We are here to create a seamless environment. We are the machinery. The family are the occupants. We do not interact with the occupants beyond the scope of our duties." It is a polite, corporate-coded warning. "I saw you with the boy." Annalise simply nods, the picture of compliance. Would you tolerate this invisibility just to help a child? Later that day, while dusting the imposing shelves of the library, a room filled with pristine, unread books, Annalise finds Leo hidden behind a large leather armchair. He is not reading, he is watching her, his small face a mask of careful neutrality. He tracks her movements as she works, his gaze intense. As she reaches for a high shelf, the simple, lavender-scented scarf she wears tucked into her collar snags on a carved wooden finial. Annoyed, she unwinds it from her neck and folds it, placing it on a nearby table. The fabric is soft, worn, and unremarkable, but to Leo it is an event. From his hiding place, his eyes fix on the small square of cloth. He leans forward slightly, his posture shifting from passive observation to active interest. He seems to be studying its texture, its scent, the way it holds the light. It is a piece of her, separate from the uniform, and it has captured his silent, lonely attention. She leaves it there for a moment longer than necessary, a silent acknowledgement of his gaze before tucking it back into her collar and moving on. The storm arrives without warning one Tuesday evening, a furious tantrum of wind and rain that rattles the mansion's great glass walls. The lights flicker once, twice, then die, plunging the house into a disorienting darkness before the backup generators kick in with a low, guttural hum. For Leo, the sudden shift is a cataclysm. A shrill, piercing scream cuts through the house. It's a sound of pure terror, primal and raw. Annalise, who had been in the laundry room, feels the sound in her bones. She runs towards it, her heart pounding. She finds him in the main hall, huddled at the base of the grand staircase, while his designated evening therapist, a woman with a clipboard and an anxious expression, tries to reason with his panic. "Leo, let's use our breathing techniques," the therapist says, her voice a uselessly placid ripple against his tidal wave of fear. "In for 4, out for 4. Another clap of thunder, closer this time, makes the windows vibrate. Leo's scream turns into a series of desperate, gasping sobs. Mr. Sterling appears at the top of the stairs, a silhouette against the dim emergency lighting. He looks down at the scene, his face a mask of frustration and utter helplessness. His son is breaking, and all of his power, all of his wealth, is useless to fix him. The therapist tries to touch Leo's shoulder, and he recoils, scrambling away from her. Annalise knows this is not a moment for techniques or for words. She walks slowly into the grand hall, stopping a good distance away. She doesn't look at Leo directly, but kneels on the cold marble floor, making herself small, unthreatening. And then she begins to hum. It's a simple, nameless tune, a low, steady lullaby from her own childhood. The melody is nothing special, but it is constant. It is a sound of pure, unconditional comfort in the chaotic darkness. It asks for nothing. It promises nothing but its own continuation. Leo's frantic sobs begin to subside. He turns his tear-streaked face towards the source of the sound. He sees Annalise, a calm, still presence in the half-light. The therapist falls silent, watching. Mr. Sterling remains frozen on the stairs, a stunned spectator to a language he does not understand. Annalise continues to hum, her eyes soft. Slowly, hesitantly, Leo crawls across the floor. He doesn't go to his father nor to the paid professional. He crawls into Annalise's lap, buries his face in her uniform, and holds on as if she were the only solid thing in a world that had just tried to shake itself apart. Annalise wraps her arms around his trembling body, her humming never ceasing. The storm inside the boy finally begins to quiet. In the aftermath of the storm, Annalise understands her role must be one of quiet consistency. Leo's world is unpredictable. She will be his one fixed point. She begins to build him a silent scaffolding of care, routines so subtle they are nearly invisible to anyone else. She starts with notes. Knowing he avoids words, she draws him simple pictures on small squares of paper. A smiling sun left by his orange juice in the morning. A tiny sleeping cat placed on his pillow at night. They are small anchors in his day, tangible proof that he is seen. She learns the intricate hierarchy of his dinosaur toys. The T-Rex is the protector, the Stegosaurus is the nervous one. Every morning she arranges them on his windowsill in a silent tableau, the T-Rex standing guard over the others, facing the door. It is a story of safety, told in plastic. The house remains cold, but these small pockets of warmth begin to have an effect. One afternoon, Mr. Sterling walks past Leo's open door and stops. He hears a sound he hasn't heard in months, his son, humming. Leo is sitting on the floor, arranging his own toys, and the tune is the same low, steady lullaby Annalise hummed during the storm. It is a sound of self-soothing, a tool of comfort he has learned and internalized. For a brief second, a look of wonder crosses Mr. Sterling's face. The moment is shattered, however, at the end of the week. The therapist, Miss Albright, sits in Mr. Sterling's office for her review. "We had a major breakthrough with Leo this week," she announces, clicking her pen. "He's begun using auditory self-regulation, a technique I've been modeling for him. It's a clear sign the therapy is taking hold." Mr. Sterling, who only understands progress when it comes with a clinical label and a hefty invoice, nods in satisfaction, crediting the woman who observed the change rather than the one who caused it. Annalise never seeks credit. Her reward is the slow, fragile blooming of the boy in her care. She continues her quiet work, feeling the invisible thread between them strengthen each day. She has learned the cadence of his moods, the meaning of his silences. She knows when to be near and when to give him space. The breakthrough comes on a quiet Thursday. She is in his room folding a basket of his freshly laundered clothes. The scent of lavender from her scarf, transferred in the wash, hangs faintly in the air. Leo is on his bed, looking at a picture book, the pages turning without a sound. The silence is comfortable, a shared space of peace. She folds a small T-shirt, placing it on his dresser. As she turns back to the basket, a tiny voice, rusty from disuse, cuts through the quiet. "Anna." Annalise freezes. She turns to look at him. He is looking directly at her, his expression serious, his eyes clear. It wasn't a mumble, it wasn't an accident. He said her name. Not the maid. Not a gesture or a sound. Her name. It is the first word anyone has heard him speak in over a year. She feels a surge of emotion so powerful it almost brings her to her knees. It is the profound, earth-shattering validation of being truly seen. She gives him a small, slow smile, a silent thank you. "Hello, Leo," she says softly. He does not reply, turning his attention back to his book as if nothing has happened, but everything has happened. A locked door has just been opened and he has handed her the key. The victory is immense, and it is entirely secretly hers. If that happened to you, what would you do? Stay silent or claim the victory? Annalise chooses to hold the moment like a precious stone, keeping it safe in the quiet of her heart. Mr. Sterling begins to notice the changes in his son, but he sees them through the distorted lens of his own worldview. He sees Leo leaving his room more often. He hears the whisper of his name. From the window of his office, he observes Annalise and Leo in the garden. Leo is pointing at a flower and Annalise is nodding, her attention wholly on him. He even sees Leo smile, a fleeting ghost of a thing, but a smile nonetheless. Another man might feel relief or gratitude. Damien Sterling feels a prickle of something else, anxiety, disruption. His life is a fortress built of control, and this quiet, unquantifiable bond between his son and his employee is a variable he cannot manage. He doesn't understand it, and therefore he doesn't trust it. He sees Leo's growing attachment to Annalise not as a sign of healing, but as a dangerous dependency. He perceives Annalise's gentle care as a manipulation, a blurring of the clear, transactional lines he requires in his household. She is overstepping. She is making herself indispensable, and in his world, that is a threat. He doesn't confront Annalise directly. That would require an emotional conversation, a terrain he avoids at all costs. Instead, he summons Mrs. Gable. The boy seems attached to the new maid, he says, his back to her as he stares out at the sea. "Yes, sir, she seems to have a calming effect." "It's unprofessional," he clips. "Her duties are domestic, not therapeutic. I want you to manage the situation. Remind her of her boundaries. Ensure she maintains a professional distance. He has therapists for that." "Of course, Mr. Sterling," Mrs. Gable says. "The order is given. The walls are to be rebuilt. The fragile warmth is to be extinguished. The dinner party is a small, important affair. 2 board members and their wives, people Mr. Sterling needs to impress." The dining room gleams. The conversation is stilted and strategic, and Annalise moves silently in the background, refilling water glasses, clearing plates, a ghost in the service of power. Leo, who is usually in his room by this hour, has been allowed to stay up, a misguided attempt by his father to project an image of familial normalcy. The boy sits at the vast table, small and silent, pushing a piece of asparagus around his plate. The forced social interaction, the loud voices, the unfamiliar faces, it's too much. His composure begins to crumble. His breathing becomes shallow. His hands start to tremble. He looks around the table, his eyes wide with panic, and then he looks past the guests, his gaze locking on Annalise as she stands by the sideboard. "Anna," he whimpers, the sound barely audible. When she can't respond, his voice grows louder, a desperate, rising cry. "I want Anna." The conversation at the table halts. 6 pairs of eyes turn to stare, first at the crying boy, then at his mortified father, and finally at the maid, frozen in the spotlight of a child's desperate plea. Mr. Sterling's face hardens, his embarrassment quickly curdling into a cold fury. He excuses himself, rises, and strides toward the kitchen, his hand gripping Annalise's arm in a firm, bruising grip. He pulls her through the swinging door. "What did you do?" he hisses, his voice a venomous whisper. "Mr. Sterling, this is what I was talking about. You have deliberately fostered this. Attachment, you made a scene, you have humiliated me and my son." "He was overwhelmed," Annalise says, her voice trembling slightly. "He needed comfort. He needs to learn to cope, and you need to learn your place," he snarls. "You overstepped. This is not your role. For the rest of the evening you will remain in the kitchen. Do not come out again. Is that understood?" She can only nod, the injustice of it a bitter pill to swallow. She was being punished not for a mistake, but for her success. She was being exiled because she had become the one thing this house, and this family, so desperately needed, a source of genuine, unconditional love. The annual Sterling Foundation Gala is the crown jewel of the city's social calendar, held at the mansion itself. For Annalise, it is an evening of orchestrated chaos. Hundreds of guests arrive, a river of silk, jewels, and expensive perfume flooding the cold, sterile halls. The air thrums with loud music and the roar of 100 simultaneous conversations. It is a sensory minefield. Her duties are confined to the sprawling basement kitchen, managing catering staff, but her thoughts are upstairs with Leo. She knows this night will be an ordeal for him. Earlier in the day, she saw him watching the preparations from a window, his small body tense with anxiety. Her plan, if it can be called that, is an act of quiet hope. During a brief trip upstairs to restock champagne, she takes a moment. She slips down a quiet, little-used service hallway, a shortcut she knows Leo sometimes takes to avoid the main rooms. On a small, upholstered bench in the dimly lit corridor, she leaves her lavender-scented scarf, folded neatly. It's a message in a bottle, a lighthouse in a storm. If he finds it, perhaps it will be enough. The threshold is crossed an hour later. The lights in the grand ballroom dim, a single, powerful spotlight hits the stage, and Mr. Sterling steps up to the microphone. The applause is deafening. For the guests, the main event has begun. For Leo, somewhere in the house, the world has just been plunged into a terrifying vortex of noise and darkness. Annalise, polishing glasses in the kitchen, feels a cold knot of dread tighten in her stomach. It happens 10 minutes into Mr. Sterling's speech. A frantic security guard speaks into his wrist radio, his voice a tense whisper that nonetheless carries to the kitchen staff. The boy is gone. Panic is a virus. It spreads instantly. Mrs. Gable begins issuing frantic orders. Security guards sweep the grounds with flashlights. Mr. Sterling, alerted discreetly on stage, shortens his speech, his composure a thin, cracking veneer over a chasm of fear. Annalise alone remains calm. She unties her apron, sets it on a counter, and walks out of the kitchen. She doesn't run towards the garden or the guest wings. She walks against the current of panicked staff, heading for the one place she knows he would seek: silence. Sensory deprivation. The deep, quiet heart of the house. She finds him in the laundry room. He is huddled inside a large, empty linen basket, curled into a tight ball. The room is dark and smells of clean cotton and bleach. He is not crying. In his hands he is clutching her lavender scarf, holding it tight against his face, breathing in its familiar, calming scent. He found the lighthouse. She doesn't speak. Words are useless here. She simply sits on the cool tile floor beside the basket, her presence a silent promise of safety. After a few minutes, he peeks over the edge of the basket, his eyes locking with hers. He understands. She understands. She holds out her arms and he climbs out, letting her lift him. He is heavy, but he melts against her, his small body finally relaxing. She carries him out of the laundry room and back into the main hallway, just as Mr. Sterling is striding towards them, his face pale with terror. The crowd of guests parts, their curious, sympathetic murmurs filling the space. They see the maid in her simple black uniform, holding the billionaire's son who is clinging to her as if his life depends on it. They see a tableau of pure, undeniable connection that money could never buy. Mr. Sterling stops in front of them. He looks at his son safe. He looks at Annalise calm. He looks at the worn, lavender scarf clutched in Leo's hand. The pieces finally click into place. All his systems, his therapists, his rules had failed. This quiet, invisible woman had succeeded not by doing but by being. He meets her gaze, and the arrogance, the anger, the frustration, it's all gone. In its place is a raw, humbling clarity. "You stayed," he says, the words quiet, meant only for her. It is not an accusation this time. It is a revelation, an admission of a truth he had refused to see. Everyone else leaves. "You are the one who stayed." Did you feel that shift? Literal goosebumps when he finally understood. The day after the gala, the mansion is unnaturally still, as if holding its breath. Annalise expects a summons, a dismissal, a final, cold transaction. Instead, the summons that comes is to Mr. Sterling's office, and his tone is different. He is standing by the window when she enters, not sitting behind the fortress of his desk. "He slept through the night," Mr. Sterling says without turning around. "He hasn't done that in a year." He turns to face her, his expression unreadable. "I was wrong," he says. The words sound difficult for him, like stones he has to force from his throat. "What you've done for my son, it's invaluable. I want to compensate you for it." He gestures to an envelope on his desk. A bonus, a significant one, and a new contract with a substantial raise. Annalise looks at the envelope, then back at him. She thinks of the humiliation, the loneliness, the cold dismissals. She could take the money. She has earned it. But that would be his solution, a way to close the emotional ledger with a financial entry. It would change nothing. "Thank you, Mr. Sterling," she says, her voice steady. "But that isn't what I want." He looks surprised. "What then?" This is the moment for soft justice, not revenge but reform. "Last night Leo wasn't running away," she begins, choosing her words with care. "He was running towards quiet. The world for children like him can be too loud, too bright. It causes them pain. They need safe harbors." She takes a breath. "Your foundation does wonderful work. It builds hospitals and schools. But what if it also built quiet? What if, in every museum, every airport, every library you fund, there was a small, simple room where a child like Leo could go to feel safe when the world becomes too much?" She is not asking for herself. She is asking for all the other Leos. What does real justice look like here? For Annalise, it looks like preventing the pain from happening again. Mr. Sterling listens, truly listens for the first time. He is not hearing a maid but a strategist, an advocate, an expert in a field he never knew existed, the architecture of compassion. Damien Sterling does not do things by halves. When he embraces an idea, he does so with the full, overwhelming force of his empire. Annalise's quiet suggestion becomes the Leo Project, the new flagship initiative of the Sterling Foundation. It is not a vague promise. It becomes policy. Annalise sits in a boardroom, the same kind of room she used to silently clean, and watches as lawyers draft the new mandate. Clause 1. A. All Sterling-funded public facilities will include a designated sensory-neutral quiet room, designed to provide a safe, low-stimulus environment for individuals with sensory processing sensitivities. She is not just a spectator, she is the central consultant. Architects show her blueprints and she makes notes. "The lighting should be indirect and warm," she advises, pointing with a pen. "No fluorescent hum, and the textures are important. Smooth, cool surfaces, soft, heavy blankets." She works with a perfumer to develop a subtle, calming lavender scent that can be diffused in the rooms. She is no longer invisible. She is the project's founding advisor. Mrs. Gable now calls her Miss Dubois. The other staff watch her with a mixture of awe and confusion. She still lives in the house, still maintains a quiet presence, but her role has fundamentally shifted. She has changed the system not by shouting at it, but by whispering a better idea in its ear. Would this change be enough in your workplace? Months pass. The first quiet room is set to open in the city's art museum. Leo is a different child. He speaks in full sentences now, his voice still soft, but steady. The fear in his eyes has been replaced by a quiet curiosity. One Saturday afternoon, Annalise is in the mansion's vast kitchen, reading a book at the small staff table. The room is no longer a sterile showroom. It often smells of baking, as she has been teaching Leo how to make simple things. Leo enters, walking with a newfound purpose. He is carrying a small tray. On it is a single white mug, identical to the one she first gave him. It is filled with cocoa. A little bit has sloshed onto the tray, and the powdered chocolate on top is a bit lumpy, but it was clearly made with intense concentration. He sets the tray down in front of her. "I made it for you, Anna," he says, his smile shy but proud. Annalise looks from the boy to the cup, and her vision blurs with tears. This small, clumsy gesture is more valuable to her than any bonus, any title. The care she had so patiently given had not just been received, it had been learned. It was now being offered back to her. She picks up the mug, the warmth seeping into her hands. It is the feeling of her dignity being restored, not by an employer's decree, but by a child's love. Annalise is given an office at the Sterling Foundation headquarters. It is a simple, quiet space with a large window that overlooks a small park. There is no press release announcing her new title, no grand ceremony. Mr. Sterling understands, finally, that Annalise's power lies in her quietness, and so her recognition is of the same nature. He visits her on her first day. He doesn't bring flowers or offer speeches. He brings a thick binder and places it on her desk. "This is the proposal for the National Museum expansion," he says. "They've included the specs for the quiet room, but it feels clinical. I was hoping you would look it over. Tell me what you think." The 4 simple words, "tell me what you think," are the most profound acknowledgement he could give her. It is a recognition of her mind, her expertise, her value beyond the roles he once assigned to her. He is not just giving her a job, he is asking for her wisdom. He has learned to see. Recognition done right, agree. He now sees her not as the woman who saved his son, but as the woman who is helping him build a better, kinder world. The office is sparsely decorated. Annalise brings in a small plant, a few books, but on the main wall opposite her desk hangs a single piece of art. It is a simple, square frame of dark wood. Inside, against a backing of plain white linen, is her old, worn, lavender-scented scarf. It was Mr. Sterling's idea. He had asked for it, and she had given it to him, understanding its new purpose. It is no longer a personal item, a piece of her uniform, or even a child's comfort object. It is now a charter, a mission statement. It is a constant, tangible reminder of the Foundation's new ethos, that the softest, quietest, most overlooked things often hold the most power. Visitors to her office sometimes ask about it. "It's a reminder," she tells them with a small smile, "that the most important work is often the work no one sees." The symbol's meaning has transformed from a private comfort to a public promise. Did the object's meaning change for you too? It hangs on the wall, a testament to the fact that one woman's quiet, persistent care could reframe an entire institution. She is ready for the future, years later. The Leo Project has become a national standard. We are in a bustling airport, the air thick with the stress of travel. A mother is struggling with her young daughter, who is on the verge of a sensory meltdown amidst the noise and crowds. Then the mother sees a sign, a simple logo of a sheltering hand with the words "Quiet Room." Inside, the world falls away. The room is hushed, the lighting soft, and in the corner a volunteer is showing a small boy how to sort smooth, cool river stones by size. The volunteer is a young man of about 16, tall and self-possessed, with his father's dark hair and a calm, gentle demeanor that is entirely his own. It is Leo. He looks up and sees the new arrivals. He offers the mother a kind, understanding smile. He walks over to the little girl, who is still trembling, and kneels down. He doesn't speak at first. He just offers her one of the smoothest, darkest stones. "It's okay," he says, his voice low and steady, echoing words we heard long ago. "You don't have to talk, you can just be." He has learned the language of quiet care. He is now the anchor. The legacy is not in the room itself or the Foundation's name on the door. It is in him. It is the healing passed on. The camera holds on his face, a face of quiet confidence and deep empathy, a living testament to the woman who stayed. Sometimes justice arrives without applause. Have you ever stayed when no one asked you to, and that made all the difference?